Hello eSmall Honor students. This is our last video for our number system unit, and it's going to be focusing on changing bases. All right, let's go ahead and start our lesson by doing a quick review from changing base 5 into base 10. So as you can see, we have 2, 0 in base 5, and we need to see what that means in our number system. So we know base 5 means we need to times by 5. So let's go ahead and figure out what those numbers are on the bottom. So we have 1. Since it's base 5, we're going to times by what class? 5. Good job. I want you to see that on your notes. And then we're going to times by what class again? 5. Yep, because it's base 5. We're multiplying by 5 every single time. All right, so I'm going to just go 4 place values. Let's see if that's enough. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So I'm going to take my 1, my 5, my 25, and 125 that I just figured out. Now I'm going to take my 2, 0 from my base 5, and I'm going to place it on the top. Since I know I need to multiply, I'm going to go up and down. So 0 times 1 I know is 0, and I know 2 times 5 is 10. And since there's no place values right here that we need for our base 5, nothing is there. In fact, if we want to put zeros, we can, but we don't need to. So it looks like when we add those up, it is 10. So base 5, 2, 0 is 10 in our number system. We are going to go ahead and do problem number 2 in class. All right, let's do a review. Let's work the other way now. Now we have our base 10, so we have 154, and we need to see what that is in base 5. Okay, since we're looking for base 5, we need to write it in base 5 on our table. So we need to have 1, 5, 25, and 125, just like we had a moment ago, okay, because we're hoping to go into base 5. All right, first thing is first. We need to take this number and we need to divide it by 125. Okay, so if I go 154 divided by 125, I know 125 can go into 150 one time with the remainder of 29. And that makes sense because 154 minus 125 is 29. So I know that can go in there one time. Then we're going to take that 29, that remainder that we had, and we're going to divide by 25. And that makes sense because the next thing in our table is 25. So if I divide that, I know 25 goes into 29 one time with the remainder of 4. All right, now I'm going to take that 4. Oh, sorry, it goes in there one time. Let's put that in there. Then we're going to take that remainder of 4, and we're going to divide it by 5. Whew, looks like this one is not good because this is going to get us a decimal. So when we get a decimal, we're going to go ahead and put 0. Okay, there's no way any of it can go in, so we just put a 0. All right, now let's take that 4 again, and let's divide by 1, and that makes sense because the last number in our table is 1. So we're going to divide, and it goes in there 4 times. Now I'm going to place that on the top, and let's just do a real quick check. Is our answer reasonable? The answer is yes, even though there's a 4, because remember, it's base 5, and the largest number that we can get in base 5 is 4. So the 5 digits in base 5 are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1104 makes sense. All right, just like on number 2, we're going to skip number 4. We're going to do that in class. All right, another quick review, how to change base 10 into base 2. Since we're looking for base 2, we need to make sure we have our label on the bottom in base 2. So if I always start with 1, no matter what base it is. And since it's base 2, what am I going to multiply by, class? 2. Beautiful. And I'm going to multiply by 2. And I'm going to do that on every single one. So we get my 8. I'm going to multiply by 2 again, and I'm going to get 16. All right, so I'm going to take those exact same numbers, and I'm going to place them in my table since we're dealing with base number 2. And I'm going to zoom in here. All right, so we have our 1, our 2, our 4, our 8, and our 6. Awesome work. Since we're starting off with base 10, this tells me we need to start division, just like we did on problem number 3. All right, so I'm going to take my number 28, and I'm going to divide it by the highest number in my table. So it looks like that's 16. So I'm going to go 28 divided by 16. I know that's going to go in there one time with a remainder of 12. And that makes sense because 28 minus 16 is 12. So I'm going to go ahead and place a 1 in there. That remainder of 12, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 8. And that makes sense because the next number in my table is 8. So I take that, looks like I'm dividing, and it's going to go in there one time. And then there's going to be 4 left over. And that makes sense because 12 minus 8 is 4. So it goes in there one time. We're going to take that remainder of 4 and we're going to divide it by 4, and that goes in there one time. Notice that there's no remainder. I'm going to do a remainder of 0. And then I'm going to take that remainder and it's going to go in there 2 times because the next thing on our table is 2. Well, that doesn't work. And then there's no remainder again, so we're going to go ahead and enter another 0 on the 1 place. So 28 in base 10 is 11100 in base 2. Just like what we did on the last ones, we're going to go ahead and skip number 6 as well. We are going to do that in class. All right, last review problem. Notice this one has base 2 first, and we have to go into base 10. I'm going to zoom in again. Since we're in base 2, we know we have to fill the chart on the bottom with base 2. So we know that was 1, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm going to take those numbers that are in the table, on the top there, and I'm going to put them in my table. Now we need to multiply. This is very similar to problem number 1. All right, I'm going to take that 0, multiply by the 1, and I get 1. I'm going to take the 1, multiply by 2, I get 2. 0 multiplied by 4 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 16 is 16. Now remember, we're going to add these up to figure out what number it is really in base 10, the system that we use. So 16 plus 8 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 is 26. So we know this number is 26. Just like we did on the other problems, we're going to skip problem number 8. And now we're ready to learn the new stuff. Today is all about adding and subtracting bases. So let's go ahead and remember some rules. So looks like this, if you had to guess, what base system is this right here? Just give me a guess if all we have is 0 and 1. It's base 2, beautiful. So let's do some kind of reminders. So if I have 0 in base 2, that's 0. If I have 1 in base 2, that's 1. If I want 2 in base 2, remember, since there's nothing past 1, we need to go to a new place value, so that's represented by 1, 0. If I want 3, I can go ahead and write down 1, 1, because 1 higher than 0 is 1. But there's nothing higher than 1, so if I want 4, I need to write 1, 0, 0, because this one right here has to start over. This one right here has to start over, and we need to start a new place value. If I'm doing 5, I'm going to do 1, 0, 1, and that makes sense because that 0 right there turns into a 1. And then let's do 6. This is just one more here. We are going to do 1, 1, 0, because that 1 over here starts over at 0, and then 1 higher than 0 is 1, and then we bring down the 1. Okay, we are going to use this key when we are adding our integers. All right, so let's go ahead and start adding. As I'm looking at my numbers, we're going to do the same thing as we do as if it was base 10. In the sense of we are going to add these up first. So we're starting on the left-hand side. So I have 1, 1, 0, and 1. I know that adds up to 3. Well, I can't just write a 3 because it's in base 2. So I'm going to use my little key over here. I'm going to write down 1, and I'm going to carry it over, just like you would if anything is too big, it goes in the next place value. So now I have 1, 0, 1, 1, 1. I know in reality that adds up to 4, but I can't write 4 because it's base 2. So I'm going to write down 0, 0, 1. Again, if something is too big, it needs to go to the next place value. And if I'm looking at my 4, there's three digits, so I need to make sure I really write those 3 digits. All right, let's look at our next one. We have 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. I know that's 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write down 1, 1, because that's representing 3 in base 2. Looks like, and our next one also is 3, so we're going to put 1, 1. We have another 3 again. Wow, looks like we're getting lots of 3s. Yet again, another 3. All right, so now we're at our last place value. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to use my code again. I know I can't write down 5 because it's base 2, so I'm going to write down 1, 0, 1. So if you had this question on the quiz, you would write down this whole entire answer. Thing to remember is to write out a key before you start. That's going to help you. We're going to go ahead and skip this problem. We're going to do it in class. Next, we're going to look at binary subtraction. We are going to take 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, subtract 1, 0, 1, 0. First of all, we need to remember that there are certain place values in binary. So this is the 1's place, this is the 2's place, 4, 8, and then 16th place. So we're going to kind of use that to help us keep track of our answers. And I'm going to go ahead and write our answers in red. So if we're looking at our 1's place value, we know 1 take away 0. That's still going to be 1. So we're going to write 1 there. In our 2 place value, we have 0 take away 1. Just like in base 10, we can't take away something from nothing. So we are going to borrow from our 4 place value. We are going to take that 1 and we're going to change it into a 0. And just like on base 10, we're going to move it over to the 2's place value. This means that we are taking the 4, which was over here. We had 1, 4, and we're moving it over to here. So now we have 2 2's. So the 4 right now is right here. So if I have 2 2's, or the 4, and I take away 1 2, I have 1 2 left over. So 4 minus 2 equals 2. That's 1 2. And that makes sense because we are in the 2 place value. Now let's look in our 4 place value. I have 0 4's, take away 0 4's, that's 0. Now let's look at the 8 place value. I have 8, take away 1 8, that leaves me with no 8's. And there's nothing in the 16th place value, so 1 take away nothing is still 16. Or 1 16 take away no 16's is 16. So our answer is 1 0 0 1 1. Let's look at some things to remember, some patterns that we noticed. So if we have 1 something, take away nothing, we ended up getting 1. This is the same pattern that we saw in the first 1's place value. Next we saw what looks like a 10 but really is 1 0 in binary. Take away 1, we are left with 1. And we saw that pattern in the 2nd place value. We had 2 2's, which is represented by a 4. Take away 1 2, we are left with 1 2. Another pattern that we identified was right here. If we have something that looks like 11 but really is 1 1 in binary, take away 1, we get 1 0 as our answer. And that is represented right here. So we represent it as 1 0. Our next example we're going to skip and do it in class. All right, let's continue our lesson by adding in base 5. So we are going to add 3 2 4 plus 2 1 3. Notice I'm not calling it 324 because it's not 324, it's 3 2 4. Just like in base 10 or base 2, we are going to start our addition on the right-hand side. So I have 3 plus 4. Well, I know 3 plus 4 is going to be 7, but in base 5, I can't use that number. I can use 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Anything above 4 needs to go to a new place value. So I am going to need to carry over a value of 5. Let's look at an example in base 10. So let's go ahead and do 19 plus 7. All right, so if this was our answer, I'm going to go ahead and draw that line again. We're doing it in columns. Here our answer would be 16. So I want to write a 6, and we are carrying over 10. And that makes sense because we're in base 10, so I put a little 1 right here. That 1 is representing one group of 10, so we would have 2 in the next place value. We're going to do that same thing on our example, but instead of our number being 10, we're in base 5, so we're going to write a 5 on the top. So if we have 7, how many 5s can I move over? Well, I know 5 plus 2 is 7, so I can move one group of 5 over. Okay, all right, let's look at our next place value, our place value of 5. I'm going to draw the line just like we did before, and I'm going to write a little 5 on the top because I know I can carry over groups of 5. So I know I have 1, 2, and 1. That adds up to 4. I know I can use the digit 4. That's one of my numbers I can use, so I'm going to place a 4 over there. Next place value, this is the 25 place value. We have 3 plus 2, well that's 5. If I look at my digits I can use, 5 is not allowed, so I need to carry over a group of 5. Well, if I have 5, I'm going to carry the whole group over. So then that means I had no groups, right here, no groups, and moved all the groups that I did have over there to the next place value, which is 125. So 1 plus nothing is still going to be 1. So my answer is 1042. My next problem we're going to skip because we're going to do this in class. The last problem we're going to do is subtraction in base 5. Now just like before, we're going to write down what these numbers really mean or what place value these are in. So we have our 1 place value, our 5 place value, and our 25 place value. And this is important to keep track of because this number 2 is not really 2, it's 2 groups of 25. So really, we have 50 right here when we look at that 2. So that's what we're going to keep track of. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and start on the right-hand side, just like we do in base number 10. All right, so I have 2 groups of 1 minus 3 groups of 1. In normal addition, we can't take 2 away from 3, so we are going to need to borrow from the next place value. We are going to take this one group of 5, and we're going to switch it to 0, and we're going to take those 5s that we borrowed, and we're going to place it in the 1's place value. So if we had 2 1s before, and we moved that group of 5 over, now we have 7, and I'm going to cross off that 2, because 5 plus 2 is 7. If I have 7 groups of 1 minus 3 groups of 1, I now have 4 groups of 1. Let's go to the next place value. In the 5 place value, I have 0 groups of 5, and I need to take away 4 groups of 5. Well, if I have no groups of 5 to start with, I need to borrow from the next place value. So this 25 right here is 5 groups of 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. So we are going to take away 1 group of those 5s, so we're going to leave 1 over here, and we're going to place it in the in the 5 place value. So we're going to take that 5 and move it over here. And that makes sense because we just transferred 1 group of 25, and 5 times 5 is 25. If we have 5 groups of 5 and we need to take away 4 groups of 5, then I have 1 group of 5 left over. Next is our 3rd place value, 25. If we have 1 group of 25, take away no groups of 25, we still have 1 group of 25. Okay, so I get it. This kind of is confusing. So we're going to go ahead and draw a diagram off to the side. All right, so go ahead and pause that video and draw the diagram on the side. Let's take the exact same problem that we did over here and use it in kind of a chip model. So I had 2 groups of 25, so I'm going to put 2 circles in there. I had 1 group of 5. I'm going to put 1 group of 5 in the 5 place value and 2 groups of 1. All right, so it said take away 3 groups. Well, I don't have 3 groups to take away from. So I'm going to take this 5 and I'm going to transfer it over in the ones place value by writing 5 little circles. So if I had 2 and I plus 5 more, I now have that 7 that we were talking about over here. And we took away 3. Let's go ahead and cross those off. I take away 3. 1, 2, 3. I am now left with 4. And that makes sense because we were having 4 over here. Now let's look at our 5 category, our 5 place value. We had no 5s left over. So we had to look at our next place value, which was 25, and we needed to move some over. That's exactly what we're going to do in our chip model. So we're going to take that 25, and we know 25 is 5 groups of 5. So I'm going to cross that off. And I needed to take away 4. Since I have 5 now, and I need to take away 4, we're going to go ahead and cross them off just like we did in our ones place value. And we have 1 group of 5 left over. And that makes sense because that's that 1 right here. Now in our 25 place value, we have 1 more group of 25. So that's what happens here. We just cross this off just like we did here. And 1 take away nothing is 1. So we have 1 group of 25 left. We are going to do our last example in class. If you are kind of confused, I want you to rewatch the video because when we get to class, we need to have some basic understanding of how to add and subtract in both base 5 and in base 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in class.